There is one toxic trait that can cause so much stress, anxiety, burnout, overwhelm, and also regret. We've all done it before, and nobody has liked it. I'm going to share it with you in just a moment, and I'm also going to share what to do to prevent it from happening again, so that way you don't look back and have all of these regrets based on certain decisions that you made because of this one toxic trait. But hey, before we dive in, if you're new to me, welcome to the conversation. Great to have you here. My name is Dan Candell. I'm known worldwide as the Anxiety Relief Guy, and it's my job to help you reprogram your subconscious mind so that way you have more wins and losses, more good days and bad days, more breakthroughs than breakdowns, all without unnecessary stress, anxiety, or overwhelm. In my modus operandi, if you will, is I use modernized versions of hypnosis, and I also use different nervous system regulation strategies as well. If you are not new to me, if you've listened to me before, watched before, welcome back. It's great to have you back as part of the conversation. But before we dive in too quickly, I got to share this with you. I'd feel guilty if I didn't. In the new year, I believe we start January 9th, I'm doing a life-changing event. And it's all going to be online, and you can benefit from it. It is called the One Shift Away Challenge. How one shift can change your entire life. And it is a 5-week group. It's a cohort, but if you can't make it live, you get all the replays. And the details are right down below. These are the shifts that have helped change my life, and they also helped me change the lives of many others. So the link is right down below this video, so make sure you hop, skip, and jump over to that because I know it is going to change everything for you so you can have the best year ever. And I know a lot of people like sling this baloney of, oh, have your best year ever, have your best year ever. This is something that really can help you because it's going to help align all of those core belief systems, identities, and mindsets that you need to have going into the new year. And it also gives you a nice reset so that way you feel like you're going in a clean slate. So let's get started. By now, you're probably wondering, what is that toxic trait, Dan? I'm desperate to know. Well, I just told you, desperation. Have you ever been skating through life, something happens, and all of a sudden you have to make a split-second decision based on what's happening right now? It's a very reactive decision that's driven by your emotions, and you say things later like, oh my gosh, I regret doing that. I should have never done that. I should have never said that. Raise your hand if that's happened to you. You should be raising both hands because it's probably happened many times. It's just a natural thing that happens to many of us because it creates this sense of reaction. Now, if you've seen my videos before, you know I kind of get off on tangents, so I have some some notes here down below that I'm going to be glancing at every so often to make sure I stay on track. So here's what desperation can do. It doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. It doesn't matter how much success you've had or didn't have. It doesn't matter at what point you are in your life. Things happen. Shit hits the fan. And when that happens, we tend to react to things instead of respond to them. We let our emotions become the driving force that dictate every decision that we make. You've probably even said things before like, oh my gosh, I would do anything for, or you've probably felt like you've made deals with the devil before in order to work your way out of something or work your way into something. And what happens is that usually indicates that we're going to regret it later because it is a very short-term, right now solution. It's not a long-term solution. I just had this conversation with one of my friends on the phone earlier today because I've been helping a lot of clients that over the holidays, they go into desperation mode. And what happens, they start reacting to everything instead of responding to everything with a sense of calmness and a sense of, let me think about this instead of just making this decision right now based on what's happening right now, because everything is temporary. Now, one of the things I talk a lot about is being proactive with decisions that we make, but being proactive doesn't mean being reactive. When we let desperation become the driver of our decisions, we're usually focused on short-term relief rather than long-term outcomes. An example of this would be, oh, I'm worrying about money and my income, so I'm going to accept this job offer, which could be a toxic job offer, which I know is not really the right one for me. It's not going to be the right fit. Later on down the road, it will cause you to question everything about yourself. It compromises your integrity, and you start to be filled with all this stress and anxiety due to feelings of regret. Desperation often leads to regret. The second principle is when we're desperate, we are usually reacting because those reactions are driven by our emotions, not by logically thinking about things or coming from a calm place. An example of this would be you get a text message and you instantly go into overreact mode, and you send a frantic text right back to a text that you got about some misunderstanding, and now you're going back and forth, and it turns into this whole big blowout, which could have been avoided had you just pumped the brakes, cupcakes, and and just taken a moment to let it sit. And instead you went into desperation mode, desperate to get to the bottom of something, or desperate to be heard and have your voice heard about something. Another thing desperation does, it forces us to do what's easy, not necessarily what's right. And when we're making easy decisions, not the right decisions, we will be filled with regret later on. An example of this could be agreeing to do something that you really don't want to do, and then being filled with regret later when you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, I should have never agreed to this commitment. I didn't want to do it in the first place. I just did this to please the person based on how he's feeling right now. A really good lesson here is desperation creates regret because it really sacrifices our own values. It sacrifices our own integrity. And one more way desperation can get in the way is our physicality. It's never healthy to hold stress in the body for too long. And one of the things desperation does is constantly feeling desperate or making decisions from a desperate place. It causes us to hold stress and tension in the body, which weakens and compromises our immune systems. So one of the things we actually do by holding on to desperation is we make ourselves sick, and we make ourselves struggle with suffering. And that's never a healthy or good place to be. Desperation is like driving through a heavy fog. You can only see what's in front of you. You can't see what's down the road ahead, so you can't plan for it because it's like you have that tunnel vision or that foggy, blurry vision that's not allowing you to see clearly. So you might be wondering, okay, what do we do instead? This is where I like to apply the core 4 mindset shifts, and this is exactly what I'm going to be teaching in my 1 Shift Away challenge. However, you can start to think about applying it and how you're going to apply it to your lives just by watching this video. Mindset shift number 1 is radical proactive acceptance. Accepting that life isn't always going to be hunky-dory and filled with rainbows, butterflies, and unicorn farts, that there are challenges, there are struggles that come up, but instead of resisting it, we can be proactive so we can work our way through it. Number 2 is patience. And patience is a really good attribute that allows us just to practice the art of the pause. Now, again, this isn't very easy to do because many of us are in reactive mode. So that's why we want to reprogram our subconscious mind. So instead of going into reactive mode, we can go into approaching things with patience, which is going to help us practice restraint. Remember with the example I gave you about taking a toxic job offer or sending it back a nasty text message in response to a misunderstanding that happened? Well, when you practice the power of restraint, it helps you so later on you don't want to bang your head up against the wall or bang somebody else's head up against the wall. Number 3 is trust. Trusting that you have what it takes in order to work through whatever situation is happening right now, but to make sure that the decisions that you're making are going to not just be good for right now, they're also going to be good for the future. Again, this is something that I help you with by reprogramming your subconscious mind. And finally is letting go. Think of all the things that you could let go of that you've been carrying on. Expectation, doubt, guilt, shame, resentment, embarrassment, musts, demands, shoulds, all of those things have been weighing us down. So that's why we want to make sure we practice the art of letting go. Now, again, you could watch this video and say, this is great, how do I do it? But me telling you these things are conscious solutions. We want to get into the subconscious mind so that way the next time a challenge happens or the next time life throws you a curveball or the shit hits the fan, instead of getting desperate, you can allow your subconscious mind to kick into autopilot, where autopilot is embracing those 4 mindset shifts of radical proactive acceptance, trust, patience, and letting go, instead of going right to reactive mode. We're going to proactive mode instead of reactive mode. But in order to do this effectively, that's where we've got to make some subconscious shifts and have a better relationship with our emotions and a better relationship with our subconscious mind. If all you did, though, was just be aware, okay, I'm going through something right now, and my gut reaction is telling me to do this because this is going to be good for right now, but just pausing for a little bit and asking yourself, am I going to regret this later? That one question, am I going to regret this later, could actually help you make so many more healthy decisions, and it can prevent you from making those destructive decisions that you'll regret later. Another really cool technique that I often teach my clients, it's called the wise advocate or the wise advisor. And it's imagining that you had like a mentor or coach out in front of you that you could ask, hey, how would you solve this problem or this challenge? So that way I don't regret the decisions that I'm going to be making later. And so that also prevents me from going into the same challenge or from this challenge happening over and over and over again. By asking yourself these questions, we call them insight or discovery questions, it really helps you develop a deeper insight into yourself. These are questions that hypnotists use all the time with their clients. In fact, I had a client last week and I loved this client. And I was asking her these questions and she just sits back and she goes, oh, I hate these questions. I said, what about these questions do you hate? And she goes, they're going to make me think. And I said, what about making you think? What is that going to do for you when you're making yourself think? What's that going to do? She goes, oh, it's going to solve my problems. But she said it with like she was just deflated. Like the solutions were always here in front of me, and all you're doing is asking me the right questions in the right order. But that's not all I do. And then I hypnotize people, and I basically give them the answers that already came from within them, so that way their subconscious mind is in alignment with their values and it's congruent with what they want to do and how they would normally do it if they weren't in desperation mode. So with that said, my friends, what do you do now? Well, the best thing to do is to head over to my 1 shift away challenge, where you could be 1 shift away from making an amazing change within yourself. Now, we're going to be working on 4 shifts over 5 weeks, but guess what this is going to do? It's going to shortcut years of therapy. It's going to shortcut all of those self-help books or self-help courses that you've gone through. And it's going to help you do the inner work that you might have been avoiding, because guess what? You are worth it, my friends. Link is right down below this video. As always, make sure you rate and subscribe, leave me a comment. And as always, be well, do good, be true to who you are. Happy holidays, happy new year, and stay sexy, cupcake. Bye for now.